Welcome to our first episode of Messed Up People God Used for Good. In the words of the Cheshire Cat and Alice in Wonderland, most everyone's mad here. And I think there's some truth to that. Most everyone here on this earth has a messed up side to them. I think if we're honest with ourselves, everyone watching this, including myself, we have had times in our life that we're not proud of. We've done things in our life that we are ashamed of. Or maybe we have some insecurities, some things that we struggle with internally. Maybe it's emotional issues or mental health issues. Whatever it may be, we have things that we are not proud of. We're messed up people. But the point of this series is to focus on people of the Bible. When we think about the people of the Bible, we usually tend to think of them as superhumans, people who achieve things that we could never achieve. But if we look closer at their lives, I think that we're going to find that most of the people in the Bible were messed up, just like you and I, and that God used them for great things. So the first person we want to look at today is Peter. You may not think of Peter as a messed up individual. In fact, when you think of the word apostle, what two people come to mind first? Probably Paul and then Peter. Peter was an apostle of Jesus. He was hand-chosen by Jesus to do his work. He did some amazing things. And many of us probably know who Peter was. But if we look at his life, we see that he had this messed up side to him. So I want to look at three scenarios that show us the messed up side to Peter. So scenario number one, Peter walks on water. When we think about the time when Jesus was out there on the lake walking to his disciples during this great storm. The winds and the waves were blowing. The apostles were fearful for their lives, and they saw this person walking out to them. They thought it was a ghost, but then they found out it was Jesus, and Peter asked Jesus, "If it is truly you, Lord, command me to come out to the water." And Jesus said, "Come." But when he saw the wind and the waves, and he was afraid and began to sink, cried out, "Lord, save me." Immediately Jesus reached out his hand and caught him. "You have little faith," he said. "Why did you doubt?" See, Peter was a man who struggled with doubt. Do you struggle with doubt? Peter was messed up just like you and I. But we look at scenario number two, and that was Peter denies Jesus. On the night that Jesus was betrayed by Judas, he went to his oppressors and the people who wanted to condemn him to death. And along the road, Peter followed him at a short distance. But when he got there, there was a young woman who said, "I know you. You're one of them. You're one of those disciples who followed Jesus of Nazareth." And Peter said, "I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know the man." He denied his best friend. He betrayed his best friend in a sense. As the NIV says earlier on, he disowned him. Have you ever done that to somebody? Are you ashamed of denying someone during the time that they needed them? Are you ashamed of being a backstabber once or twice in your life? Well, Peter was just like you, but he didn't just deny anybody. He denied the Lord. He denied Jesus. He denied God in the flesh. Scenario number three, Peter is a racist, or at least he did some very racist things. We live in a day and age when racism is on the public eye. Media talks about racism all the time. If Peter were living today, he would be labeled as a racist. Well, what did he do? Paul tells us in one of his writings that when Cephas came to Antioch, I opposed him to his face. Now Cephas is Peter. I opposed him to his face because he stood condemned. For before certain men came from James, he used to eat with the Gentiles. But when they arrived, he began to draw back and separate himself from the Gentiles because he was afraid of those who belonged to the circumcision group. Now let's talk about these two groups real quick. We got the circumcision group and Gentiles. Who were these people? Well, the circumcision group were the Jews. They were people who were born Jewish, and they had this heritage. They were the Jews. And many of them took pride in this Jewish heritage. And these groups of people from James, they were one of these people. They were groups of people who took pride in their Jewish heritage, and they opposed letting the Gentiles come in. Now, who are the Gentiles? The Gentiles were the people who are not Jews. Chances are, if you like myself, do not have Jewish blood in you, you are a Gentile. I am a Gentile. So in that day and age, these were the people who were not Jews. Before this group of people, these heretics, these people who came in and were racist, pretty much, towards this group of people that were not like them in skin and nationality, the Gentiles. Before they came, Peter was socializing with them and being kind to them like Jesus wanted him to. But when they came into the picture, Peter denied these people. Peter rejected these people and started neglecting these fine group of people who were Christians just like you and I, the Gentiles. When you look at Peter's life, he was a messed up person, just like you and I. But what is the thing that brings this all together? What was his dark side of him that he was probably very ashamed of? It was his fear. When we look at each and every scenario, Peter was afraid of the winds and the waves, and that's what caused him to start to sink. Peter was afraid of those people there on that day that Jesus was betrayed, so that's what caused him to deny Jesus. Peter was afraid of those people who came, of James, the circumcised party, because he was afraid of their reputation. So he gave in and he treated another group of people shamefully. Because of Peter's fear, Peter did things that were horrible to other people, not believing in himself, but also to Jesus. What about you? What does your fear cause you to do? Have you hurt other people in the past? Do you believe that you can't do certain things? Or even worse, have you rejected Jesus in different ways because of your fear? Because you're afraid of people or because you're afraid of yourself? What are you afraid of? And what has your fear caused you to do? Probably like Peter, you're pretty ashamed of that. But when you look at Peter, we can talk all we want to about his fear. But one thing we can't say about him is that he never got back up. He did. Each and every time he got back up. And we see that Peter was used for great things. In fact, it's because of Peter that you and I can listen to the gospel of Christ today. Jesus told him in Matthew chapter 16 that he's going to have the keys of the kingdom. And in Acts chapter 2 and Acts chapter 11, he gave the gospel, the first gospel message to both the Jews and that other nationality that we talked about, the people who are not Jews, the Gentiles. He gave the gospel to them. He was the one that opened up the gospel of Jesus, the good news about his death, burial, and resurrection, and how he appeared to all the disciples. Then he rose up in heaven and coming back to return. Peter was the one that opened that up to the world. God used a messed up person in Peter, and he can use a messed up person in you as well. Maybe you are a fearful person, and maybe that fear causes you to doubt yourself, to doubt Jesus. Maybe that fear causes you to do some pretty messed up things. Maybe you've struggled with that your whole life. But if you keep on getting up, God is going to reach out and save you. All you have to do is call out like Peter did when he was sinking because of his fear. Save me, Lord. And Jesus is going to reach out, pick you up. And Jesus, God, can use you. As messed up as you and I can be, he's going to use us for great things.